On our wedding day, I overheard my fiancée laughing with her friends. Imagine if my ex just barged in and took me away, like in the movies. They all giggled. I just stood there in silence. An hour later, she learned how this movie really ends. My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. And in a weird, twisted way, it was. It was the day I finally saw everything with perfect clarity. It was the day I dodged a bullet the size of a cannonball, and it was the day I got to be the director of the movie my fiancée had always dreamed of starring in. She just didn't like the ending I wrote. Let's get this out of the way. My name is Ethan. I'm 35. My fiancée Megan was 29. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 1. On the surface, everything was perfect. I have a good job, we lived in a nice house that I owned, and I gave her the life she always said she wanted. But for the last year, something had been eating at me. It was her obsession with her ex-boyfriend, a guy named Kyle. He was the ghost in every room. The guy she'd compare me to, usually in subtle ways. Kyle loved this song. Kyle and I used to come here all the time. I'm not a jealous guy, but I'm not a moron either. I knew she wasn't over him. I tried talking to her about it, and she'd just laugh it off, call me paranoid, and tell me that what they had was ancient history. But her eyes would tell a different story. I'm a pretty straightforward guy. I don't like games. About 6 months before the wedding, I sat her down and laid it on the line. I told her the constant mentions of Kyle were disrespectful, and that if she wasn't fully committed to a future with me, we needed to call it quits. She put on a big show, cried a little, and swore that I was the only one she wanted. She promised to stop bringing him up, to cut him out of our lives for good. For a while, she actually did. I let myself believe that we had turned a corner. I was a fool. Fast forward to our wedding day, last Saturday. The venue was a beautiful old country estate we'd rented for the weekend. I was in my tux, feeling nervous but excited. The ceremony was in an hour. I was walking from my suite to find my best man when I passed the bridal suite, where Megan was getting ready with her bridesmaids. The door was cracked open just enough for me to hear them laughing. I heard her best friend Sarah say, "You seem so calm. Aren't you nervous at all?" And then I heard Megan's voice, giddy and light. "Please, the only thing that would make me nervous is if Kyle was here." They all giggled. Then Megan said the words that would change everything. Can you even imagine though? Like, what if he just barged in right before I said I do and took me away, like in the movies? That would be so romantic. More giggling. Sarah replied, "Oh my God, you'd totally leave with him, wouldn't you?" And Megan's response was a dreamy sigh. In a heartbeat. I just stood there in the hallway, completely frozen. The world went silent. It wasn't just a joke. It was her deepest, most honest desire, shared with her friends on the day she was supposed to commit her life to me. In a heartbeat. The hurt was a flash, a white, hot pain that lasted about 3 seconds. Then it was gone, replaced by a cold, hard calm. This wasn't a surprise. This was a confirmation of everything my gut had been telling me for a year. The wedding I had paid a fortune for. The future I had planned, it was all a sham. She wasn't marrying me. She was settling for me. I didn't storm in there. I didn't yell. I just turned around and walked back to my suite. My mind was already working, the gears turning with a cold, clear purpose. She wanted a movie. Fine. I was about to give her the blockbuster of a lifetime. Update 1. When I got back to my suite, my best man, my brother, Liam, was there. He saw the look on my face and knew something was wrong. "What's up?" he asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I said. I just heard the truth. I told him what I'd overheard. He wasn't surprised. He had never liked Megan, always said there was something fake about her. He just listened, his jaw getting tighter and tighter. When I was done, he just shook his head. "So what are you gonna do?" he asked. "Are you calling it off?" "Oh, I'm calling it off," I said, pulling out my phone. "But I'm not just going to cancel it. She wants a movie. She's going to get one. I need a favor. I need Kyle's number." Liam knew a guy who knew a guy. It was a long shot, but 5 minutes later, a number popped up on his phone. Kyle's number. My next step was crucial. I had bought a burner phone a few months back, a cheap little thing I kept in my car for emergencies. This was an emergency. I grabbed it from my glove compartment. I knew I couldn't just text Kyle from my number. I had to be clever. I needed to sound like one of her desperate bridesmaids. I composed the text carefully. Kyle, this is Sarah, Megan's friend. You have to get here. Now. Megan is freaking out. She's in the bridal suite, crying her eyes out, saying she can't go through with it. She keeps saying she should be with you. If you ever loved her, you need to come and get her before she makes the biggest mistake of her life. The ceremony is in less than an hour. Don't text back, just come. It was a good story, but I needed a hook, something to make it undeniable. I added one more line. She's wearing the locket you gave her, the one with the picture of you two. She said she couldn't take it off. It was a complete lie, but a plausible one. He had given her a locket years ago that she used to wear constantly. She still kept it in her jewelry box. I was betting he wouldn't remember if he'd ever gotten it back. I hit send. Then I put the burner phone on silent and slipped it into my pocket. What now? Liam asked. Now, I said, straightening my tie, we go get married. The next hour was surreal. I went through the motions. I took pictures with my groomsmen. I talked to my parents, telling them how happy I was. I was an actor playing the part of a lifetime. The ceremony began. The music swelled. The guests were all seated in the beautiful garden where the altar was set up. I stood at the front with the officiant, watching the procession. The groomsmen, the bridesmaids, including Sarah, who couldn't even look me in the eye. Then came Megan. She was stunning. A perfect bride walking towards a man she didn't love, her head filled with fantasies of another. She glided down the aisle on her father's arm, a radiant smile on her face. As she reached me, her father placed her hand in mine. She squeezed it, a perfect picture of bridal joy. And just as the officiant opened his book to begin, a commotion started at the back of the garden. Heads turned. A man was striding up the aisle, his face a mixture of confusion and determination. It was Kyle. He was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, looking completely out of place. He walked right up to the altar. The guests were gasping. Megan's face went white. Then, for a split second, I saw it. A flicker of something wild and excited in her eyes. Her fantasy was coming true. Megan? Kyle said, his voice shaky. Sarah texted me. She said you were waiting for me? Megan just stared at him, speechless. Her mother was about to stand up and scream. Her father looked like he was going to have a heart attack. Before anyone could say another word, I stepped forward. I took the microphone from the officiant's hand. It's okay, everyone, I said, my voice calm and clear, booming through the speakers. Please don't be alarmed, I can explain. I turned to Kyle. Kyle, thank you for coming. You've got great timing. You see, an hour ago, my fiancée here was telling her friends that her ultimate fantasy was for you to barge into our wedding and take her away. I overheard her, and you know, I'm a romantic. I believe in making dreams come true, so I sent you that text from Sarah. I looked at Sarah, the bridesmaid. She looked like she was going to faint. I looked back at Megan, whose face had gone from shock to horrified as the reality of the situation crashed down on her. So go ahead, man, I said to Kyle, gesturing to Megan. She's all yours. Her fantasy is now your reality. Good luck with that. Then I turned to the stunned crowd of guests. Folks, I apologize. It appears there won't be a wedding today. Megan has made her choice. But the good news is, everything is paid for. The bar is open, the band is ready to play, and there is a mountain of food. So I invite you all to join me in celebrating my incredible escape from a lifetime of disrespect. Let's party. I dropped the microphone. I walked over to my parents, who were looking at me with a mixture of shock and pride. I hugged my mom. Then I walked straight to the open bar, ordered a double whiskey, and watched the chaos unfold. Update 2. The scene at the altar was pure, unadulterated chaos. Megan was frozen, her face a mask of horror. Kyle looked like a deer in the headlights, realizing he had just walked into the most elaborate and humiliating trap of his life. Megan's father was screaming at him. Her mother was wailing. I just stood at the bar, sipping my whiskey, watching it all unfold. My family and friends, after a moment of stunned silence, started clapping. Liam came over, slapped me on the back, and ordered a drink. My party had officially begun. Megan's family, of course, imploded. Her father, a man who was all about appearances, tried to salvage the situation. He was yelling at Kyle to leave, trying to get Megan to come to her senses. But it was too late. The damage was done. The story was already spreading through the guests like wildfire. Kyle, to his credit, just turned and walked away. He didn't say another word. He just booked it out of there, leaving Megan standing alone at the altar. Her movie fantasy hero had just abandoned her on the set. Megan, supported by her hysterical bridesmaids, was eventually led away into a side room. Her family followed, and a screaming match erupted that could be heard all the way across the garden. A few of her family's guests, the ones who were clearly there out of obligation, made a quiet exit. But most of the guests, my family, my friends, and a surprising number of our mutual acquaintances, stayed. And it turned into the best party I have ever been to. The band, after a brief, confused huddle, started playing upbeat rock and roll instead of cheesy wedding ballads. The bar was mobbed. People were coming up to me all night, shaking my hand, telling me it was the most legendary thing they had ever seen. My Dodged a Bullet party was a massive hit. The financial side of things was a mess, but a mess I had prepared for. The wedding cost a little over $100,000. I had paid for about 70% of it. Her parents had contributed the other 30%. All the contracts were in my name. The deposits were non-refundable. The day after the wedding, my phone was a war zone. Hundreds of texts and missed calls. Voicemails from Megan, alternating between sobbing apologies and furious threats. Voicemails from her father, promising to sue me for every penny I had for publicly humiliating his daughter. I responded to none of them. I had my lawyer handle it. He sent a single, simple letter to Megan's father. It stated that I considered the $30,000 they had contributed to be a gift towards a wedding that their daughter had unilaterally chosen not to participate in. It also included a formal invoice for her half of the non-refundable deposits that I had paid for, totaling a neat $35,000. The letter concluded by saying that if he wished to pursue legal action for humiliation, I would be more than happy to countersue for that amount, and that I would also be happy to subpoena the bridesmaids to testify under oath about the conversation I had overheard. The legal threats stopped immediately. The social fallout was even more devastating for her. The story of what happened at the wedding became a local legend. Everyone had a different version, but they all had the same ending: Megan, the fantasist, getting exactly what she wished for, and it blowing up in her face. Her reputation was in tatters. Kyle, the ex, also faced his own consequences. It turned out he had a serious girlfriend, a woman he had been with for over a year. She was not, to put it mildly, happy about him showing up to another woman's wedding to take her away. She dumped him publicly and spectacularly on social media. His romantic movie moment had cost him his actual relationship. About a week after the wedding, Megan showed up at my house. I was in the front yard doing some landscaping. She got out of her car, looking tired and broken. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't," I replied, not even looking up from the flower bed I was weeding. "Please, Ethan," she begged, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. It was just a silly fantasy, a joke. It didn't mean anything." "It meant everything," I said, finally looking at her. "It meant that on the day you were supposed to commit to me, you were dreaming of someone else. It meant that our entire relationship was a lie." "It wasn't a lie," she cried. "I do love you. I was just scared. You ruined everything. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know." "I didn't humiliate you, Megan," I said, my voice cold and hard. "I gave you what you wanted. You wanted a movie. You wanted your ex to show up. I was just the director who made it happen. You're the one who wrote the script. The only problem is, you didn't like the ending. That's not my problem." "But what am I supposed to do now?" she wailed. "My life is a mess." "I don't know," I said, turning back to my garden. "Maybe you should go write another movie. Just leave me out of the cast this time." I never spoke to her again. Final update. It's been 6 months. The dust has finally settled. The divorce was uncontested. My lawyer informed hers that any attempt to claim assets would be met with the aforementioned lawsuit and subpoenas, and she signed the papers without a fight. Her parents, in a move that surprised me, actually sent me a check for the $35,000. It came with a short, typed note from her father that simply said, "For the damages." I think it was his way of admitting his daughter was in the wrong. Megan's life, from what I've heard through the grapevine, is a wreck. She had to move back in with her parents. Her friends, including the giggling bridesmaids, abandoned her. Apparently, being the star of the most humiliating wedding story of the year makes you a social pariah. She had to get a normal job, working in retail. The life of glamour and drama she thought she was entitled to is gone. Kyle is still single. His reputation as a home-wrecking idiot has apparently been hard to shake. I almost feel bad for him. Almost. As for me, life is good. I sold the big house. It had too many bad memories. I bought a smaller place, just for me. The $100,000 I spent on that wedding? I don't even see it as a loss. I see it as the price I paid for my freedom. It was the most expensive and most valuable lesson of my life. I'm dating again, someone quiet and kind and real. Someone who thinks my life is interesting, not boring. Someone who would never ever joke about leaving me for someone else. The ultimate revenge wasn't the public spectacle. It was simply taking her at her word. She told me and her friends what she really wanted. I just facilitated it. I gave her the movie-perfect moment she always dreamed of. And, just like in the movies, she now has to live with the consequences of her choices, forever. The credits have rolled and she didn't get the happy ending she was expecting. I, on the other hand, did.